Welcome to One Sharp Sword, cutting through to what matters most. I'm your host, Dr. P, Dr. Wayne Pernell, the Exponential Success Coach. I have today a very special guest, Angel Pretot. He actually likes cheese, but beyond that, he is the premier French learning coach. He teaches one-to-one. He has courses. He does YouTube stuff. He's been doing all of this for over a decade, and he teaches and coaches French learners internationally. I have never had a very specific tutor on my podcast. And, we've talked about leadership here. We've talked about literacy and financial literacy. And here is a specialty niche that I think we can learn not only a little bit about how to learn. We can learn about French. We can learn how to learn pretty much anything, I think, from this process. And also, what are some of the leadership lessons along the way? With all of that said, let me introduce Angel. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Wayne, for having me. It's an honor.
Well, it's great. How is it, like, your big claim to fame currently, because there's big things in your future, that your big claim to fame is that you help English speakers learn French really fast and become fluent really fast. What led you to become the premier French instructor, like the learning coach? I love that word too, French learning coach. What led you to work with English speakers who go, I want to learn French, nothing else has worked?
Right. So that's a really, really long story. So I'll try to give you the short version. First off, I am French. It's actually my native language. I was born and raised in France until the age of 25. And then I decided to go live abroad. And I actually have a master's degree for teaching French. So I became a French teacher. I have actually been teaching French for over 18 years now, which makes me kind of old, but it's been over 18 years of teaching and about 7 years of having an online business. So long story short, 7 years ago, I found myself in a situation where I decided to create an online business rather than pursuing some other employment situation. And that was the beginning of when it was possible to teach languages online. So we started having platforms like italki or Play, which allow you to do these kind of things. And so that's how I started. So at that time, I was just teaching like I had always done, but I was already starting to specialize in teaching French to English speakers, even though in the past I've taught German speakers a lot because I've been living in German-speaking countries for 10 years. And I've also taught even other languages. I taught Esperanto a bit, I even taught Spanish at some point. And I taught English to French speakers a lot. But what I'm really specialized in is teaching French to English speakers. And then as I developed my business and I understood how more about leadership and building a business and niching and marketing, it occurred to me that it would actually be a lot more helpful to bring coaching to the French learning industry, so to speak, rather than just teaching the traditional way. Because very often what's missing, especially for English speakers who for them French is their second language, so meaning it's the first foreign language that they learn, they just don't have awareness of what it takes basically to learn a foreign language. And some of them are, well, all of my students actually are adults already. So
they're what already?
They're adults.
Adults.
So
I got you.
I haven't taught someone under 20 in probably 10 years.
Okay.
They're all adults. I have adults of all ages, including over 60.
Awesome.
And it's different teaching adults who have a busy life and who have particular goals that they need to reach quickly versus teaching teenagers who just happen to do French because they sit in class and it's on the program. It's completely different. And I really decided to focus on identifying what are the goals of each client and coaching them to achieve those goals rather than just teaching some French that may or may not be relevant to what they need. And that will be the big difference between what I do and what most other people or other offers that you can find do. And that's the core difference between teaching and coaching, is that coaching is extremely centered on the client and on them achieving their goals. That also means that I have to create a brand new curriculum from scratch for every new client that I have one-on-one. And also my group program starts with the first few workshops are about creating your curriculum for yourself. And I also spend a lot of time helping people refine what they need to learn.
That's awesome. Yeah. I have a bunch of questions for you. Okay. So I'm gonna rapid fire the questions and then you can sort them and tell me. When you said you moved abroad, I'm curious about where that is. I also know from your bio that you lived in Austria. That's not abroad from France. That's basically next door.
All right, then I moved next door.
Okay. Is that okay? Is that what you meant? All right. And then what does it take to learn a foreign language? Like you said, because I can guide people on what it takes to learn a foreign language. And, you've worked with people over 60. So from 20 to 60 plus, it's like there's hope for any adult, basically. Let me back up with those questions in mind. You grew up in what part of France? Because, for the audience, our listening audience, our viewing audience is international, so they may actually know where you are.
So I grew up in Dijon, and if you don't know where that is, you probably know about the mustard.
Sure.
Because that's internationally known. And yeah, it's in the northeast corner of France. It's the capital city of Burgundy, which is also famous for the wine.
Yes. And is that where you're living now?
No, I live in Austria now. So
you do live in Austria?
Yes. I lived in France until I was 25. Then I moved to Austria. I lived in 2 different places in Austria.
Which part?
Vienna. I lived in a small city in the mountain called Gmunden, where people don't speak English, don't speak French, and barely speak German, which is, they speak a local dialect. It was a big cultural shock, I have to say.
Yeah.
And then I met my ex-wife, who's from Berlin, and I didn't know it was contagious, so I became a Berliner too, but only for a few years. And then I got a divorce, and I regretted moving away from Vienna, actually, because I really loved the city. So I moved back to Vienna. So I did Austria, Germany, Austria.
Amazing. That's awesome. So you're in Vienna now?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. I studied for a semester, actually a summer semester at the University of Salzburg.
Nice.
So, yeah, it was gorgeous.
Very cute city. I loved visiting it. It's like a postcard.
It's amazing. Yeah. What's your master's in?
French teaching. So the whole, if I translate the name of it to title, it's Didactics of French as a Foreign Language. And my specialization is French for specific purposes, meaning that already in my master's, there is this direction of teaching people for their specific goals. But in the master's, we focus a lot on large group of people who will have specific purposes. So traditional cases are things like hotel groups that will welcome French tourists, or medical team that will have French patients. But as far as I know, no one has taken this knowledge and like this particular training and deciding, okay, I will go all in for every single person and I will do it like a one-on-one thing. To my knowledge, I am the only person in the world doing that.
That's amazing. And to decide to do that, you turned this into your business just 7 years ago.
Yes.
That's awesome. Can you describe kind of the process? Like if I were talking to you, and I am,
yes,
right? And it's like, okay, so Angel, like, what does it take for me to become comfortable? I don't expect to be fluent, but what would it take for me to become comfortable in speaking French?
So it's good to think of 2 different aspects. So one, there's a mindset element. which I would break into two categories, which is like really believing that you are able to do it. Because already when you tell me, okay, what does it take for me to become comfortable? I wouldn't expect to be fluent. It means there's like kind of thing, like, I don't know how far I can go. So it's important to be like, no, you can actually learn. Like, you have a human brain. Every human brain can actually learn a foreign language given the right circumstances, I would say.
I'm going to pause you right there, because this is a huge, one of the things that I do in this podcast is like, here's a leadership moment. Here's a learning moment.
Yes.
And for me to have said, here's this thing, and let me just sort of expose a self-limiting belief right in front of you. And it's like, I hadn't realized that that was a limiting belief until you gave it back to me and said, well, first you have to believe. So it's like, that's awesome. I know I can become fluent, which is true. And it's very interesting to step in and go, okay, so what else? Where are people limiting themselves when it comes to learning any language, when it comes to learning about finance, when it comes to learning about business? It's like, where are you limiting yourself? And I love that I've just like come face to face with, oh, I didn't expect to actually like to learn a language. I didn't expect to be fluent in it. Why not? Right? Why not? And so if that's the first place that you focus, that's awesome.
It's critical, because the single biggest predictor of whether you will succeed or not is your level of commitment. And if you don't believe it's possible, then how committed are you going to be? Like, no one is committed to achieving the impossible.
Right.
That would be weird, right? That would be crazy. So yeah, that's really important, because I mean, as a coach, I commit fully to every client, but I have to be matched with almost like at least an equal amount of commitment on the client's behalf, because I wish I had come up with some way of like just infusing the language in you, like zapping you with it.
Sure.
I have not. Okay. So I need you to show up and participate actively.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right. So part one, belief.
Yes.
And then what's the next step?
And then, so like I said, you have to believe that you can, given the right circumstance. So the second thing is really to create the environment for you and create the path so that you can become fluent. So I like to say that it's broken into 4 steps, which is SAIS, which is like to know in French. So the first one is selection. So that's actually my job, especially if we work one-on-one. For each client, I will create a roadmap, and it defines precisely all of the, we call it task in language learning jargon, but it's like all of the things that you need to be able to speak in French. So the first hour of us working together, I would ask you, okay, like, what are your goals? Why are you learning French? So you said that your wife speaks French. So maybe there's something related to your family life. I don't know, because you haven't told me so much. So it's really hard to come up with things, but perhaps you want to travel, etc. So the first full hour would be me asking you lots of questions on like what you want to achieve with it, and also what is your life already like, so that we can create some habits that you will integrate into your existing life. So one thing I love, for example, is to ask people about their hobbies and their interests, so that I can find YouTube channels and podcasts for them in French for French speakers about those interests. So for example, I know for you that you are interested in personal growth. So I would definitely give you a whole list of French YouTube channel, which I happen to already know because I'm into that as well, about personal growth. But if you tell me something else that I've never researched before, I will also research it for you. But at this stage, I have a really big database with everything from historical fashion to fly fishing, which is fun.
That's awesome. Cool. So selection is the first one, the S.
Yes.
Or
yes.
And as SAIS, which is
right.
knowledge or to know. Pardon?
Yeah, I didn't finish the whole 4 steps.
No, you didn't. You didn't. I'm pausing you at the S for a second, because I want to point out that that what you didn't say, you said it, but you didn't say it this way, is that in learning anything, it is about your motivation, and it's about your foundation. Where are you starting?
Mhm.
And what's the reason that you want to actually dive into this? Because that is going to be a predictor of commitment.
Mhm.
So this is awesome.
Absolutely.
What's the A?
So the A is for activation. This is going to be true definitely about anything you want to learn or to achieve. You need to already have there is this thing in your brain which is called the Reticular Activation System. Okay, so the same A is activation, which basically, like, if you tell yourself that you're looking for something, you will see it everywhere. So if you want a particular brand of cars, suddenly this car is everywhere around you. Well, before you never noticed it. And that's going to be super important, particularly in the third step, because the third step is immersion. So they go together. So we use actually this system to learn French successfully. So for successful activation, it could be of a particular grammar feature or a particular vocabulary. It's important at some point to input the thing that you want to learn consciously, so that then your brain can, make it part of your language, which you can do because you have step 3, which is the immersion. So immersion, that's where the YouTube channels and podcasts that I was mentioning before come in. They're here to put the language around you, because think about it. When you were a child, you learned English. You didn't think so much about, oh my God, how am I going to learn English? How am I going to learn all those words, all the grammar, all that, so much? No, you had it around you and somehow it became you. So that's the power of immersion. Like, as a child, you learn through immersion alone. You can still do it as an adult, but my guess is it's not the only thing you have on your plate. And it would be faster if you have all 4 steps rather than, just immersion. And also as an adult, you will have a lot of resistance to what's foreign. So you tend to block things out, even if you're trying to immerse yourself. So that's why the activation is also super important, because then you won't block it out because you're actively looking for it.
All right.
And
before we get to the fourth
okay.
step, because I like to just lock these things in. Okay.
Yes.
Motivation and foundation. That's selection. You are looking for.
I would say motivation and foundation are the first, like the bedrock of it. And then selection is your precise goal, like precisely knowing exactly what it needs.
That's the goal. That's where motivation is. That's the goal.
Yeah, I guess
activation is when you become aware that, wow, like even some of our French, our English words have a French, they have a French etiology. So, right. So it's like you start to become aware. So that's activation, is that that awareness starts to open.
Yes.
Immersion, putting the language around you. Yes. The reason I paused you here, Angel, is because this matches coaching, like the coaching I do.
Absolutely.
Personal and professional development is about, what are you focused on? And are you going to keep focusing there, or can you raise that up a little bit? And now can you start to be aware of a higher level of, I call it exponential success. It's not incremental. It's like when you become aware that activation piece is right. Oh, now I'm ready to take a leap. Like, it's not just I can learn a word, or I can do this, or, for your personal or professional growth, it's I'm thinking this way. And maybe if I thought slightly bigger, it's like, no, boom, suddenly you've made an exponential leap. And then immersion, right? I'm paying attention to the bookcase behind you. And I know that, for example, like those things that you are immersed in, you are growing, right? Yes. You pay attention to your clients and what are they paying attention to in their life. I love that. It's like, here's your homework, is go watch these YouTube videos and start to just be part of the language. You become, it's been said that you are the sum of the 5 people that you hang out with most. Well, who are you hanging out with for your financial literacy, your French fluency, it's like your personal and professional mastery. So this is awesome. This is really good. Selection, activation, immersion. And the fourth one is?
The last one is safe practice.
Oh.
Because if you do the first 3 steps very successfully and consistently, you will still not be speaking at all. What you will have is a lot of passive knowledge. So you will be able to understand a lot, but you will not be able to speak. And sadly, a lot of people actually arrive at this stage. And I do meet a lot of people when they're at this stage and they're like, oh, well, I have learned this so much and I can practically read a book in French, but I can never speak a sentence. And the reason why is because of lack of practice. And practice can be something like, it's kind of like a double-edged sword sometimes, because you can be in a situation where your attempt to practice are not going to be supported and you will have bad experiences and that will actually set you back. And sadly, French teachers all over the world are champions at just making people feel bad about their situation or their level or whatever. And it's not right. You need to have a space where you can practice, where nothing bad will happen to you. And because I have a lot of clients who are professionals, I mean, think about it. I have lawyers, I have diplomats, I have business owners, lots of people who have important jobs in international business or in charities. And if they mess up in real life, it's gonna be bad. Sometimes it's potentially life-threatening, either for them or for other people. I mean, if you're a diplomat in a country at war, you have pressure, right? So before you go out and do it in real life, which you might just not be able to do because you're like, I'm not competent, I'm just not gonna do it, you know? Sometimes you might miss out on a promotion because of that. It's serious. So you want to have a space where you can practice and then you can, okay, I've done it in that container. I know I can do it. So you can go out and do it in real life. That's why it's not just practice, it's safe practice. And not just to complete the say word, which is I know in French.
That's fabulous. It's are you familiar with the confidence competence loop? Have you heard of that before? The confidence competence loop?
I've not heard it phrased this way.
So the idea is that a person has competence, they're good at something. And because they're good at it, they have confidence in doing that, you know?
Yes.
And so it's like, because I'm good, I have confidence, because I'm competent, right? Or confident, I can be competent, you know? And if you think about driving a car, it's like when you first start driving, you're not so good, but as you build competence, you become confident. Well, part of safe practice is pushing beyond the comfort zone in a safe space so that loop expands.
Right. Absolutely. Right? That's the whole point. Yes.
And that is the whole point. And so for you to expand the confidence competence loop, I think that's huge. I'm patting my page that I've written my notes on, because that's safe practice to be able to say, okay, I don't want to look like an idiot when I practice this. So instead of just having passive knowledge and know something, that's the competence. I'm going to dare to step out of my confidence zone and dare to be slightly incompetent until I become competent. And then my confidence grows. That's huge. Selection, activation, immersion, and safe practice.
Yes.
Moving beyond passive knowledge. Beautiful steps.
You know you are bigger than the life you are leading. It really is time to attend to that thing you've wanted to do or have, but you've been putting off. It's time to step into that dream you've parked for someday. It's time to claim true well-being, both personally and professionally, without giving up the success that got you here. It's time to check out Dr. Pernell's signature small group retreat, the Exponential Success Summit. Explore exponentialsuccesssummit.com. Seats are extremely limited as this is a very special small group event. www.exponentialsuccesssummit.com.
How long does an average student take? Like, how long does your program typically take? Do you have people that have been with you for years, or is it sort of like, you know what, in 6 months I can get people 3 months or 9 months? Like, how do you do what you do? What's your magic?
That really depends in where you start, where you're going, and how long you have to get there. I
I
do
love that
have.
answer. It's absolutely
And I'm
accurate.
sorry, it's a terrible answer. I wish I could tell you
It's
that 6 months.
fabulous. I love that so much because people ask that about personal development. How long before I have
Yes.
my breakthrough? How long before I'm making my millions and take that exponential success leap? It depends. It totally depends. I used to teach
Yes.
martial arts and they'd go, well, how long for a black belt? When can I get my black belt? And I go, you give
Right.
me $6, I'll hand you a black belt. Ta-da. It's like,
Sure.
or you put in time and effort and energy and you actually, become a serious student and you get what you want. So,
Right.
if,
So, but I mean,
if,
I can answer more precisely if you want. Like that was
if, if
just
a
an
person were
introduction.
a serious student and they came to you and said, Angel, I'm ready to learn and I would like to, my goal is to travel in France with ease. I would like to be able to order. I'd also like to be able to read a French newspaper while having my my cappuccino.
That's
Right?
not very far off. I mean, it's not a really advanced level that you're describing. So, I mean, that can definitely be done in 6 months if you're not very fast.
That's
It can
awesome.
probably, if you're very fast, it can be done in 3 months. Probably faster than that if you're very committed. But
Yeah.
generally, I would look at the level of fluency, just like really being able to do everything you can. I have a case study on my blog of a student who did it in 6 months.
Okay.
So, and I think it was really from zero all the way to actually studying in France in a theater school.
Wow, that's something.
So I don't think everybody can expect to have these kind of results. I think he had a number of things that made him do it faster than other people. For one thing, he was rather young. I think he was 25. He is an actor, so it's a lot easier to embody something if you're already an actor, and then he actually went to Paris and he learned most of that in France. So he had full immersion all the time, French friends and everything. So he definitely had an ideal setup. But in general, I think anyone who's really committed can do it in 1 year.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So I think my audience typically has most of the people listening and watching. They typically have jobs and or careers and or family commitments and or fill in the blank. It's not like, hey, I'm going to learn French and dedicate 6-8 hours a day. It's sort of like fitness, right? I want to get fit, but I'm not going to the gym 8 hours a day. I know that those people that do, wow, their results are really fast.
Right.
So in your experience where someone comes to you and says, I want to learn, and how much time do I devote to this? It's like, well, what's your recommendation?
It really depends, but the concept of immersion is really that you have to do it as much as possible. So what I do is I teach people to do it in the cracks of the schedule. So there will be some time, for example, if you're working out, your ears will be free. So you want to be listening to some French at this point. If you're cooking, you want to be listening to some French. If you are sometime when you're in the car, that kind of things. And then it's really important, particularly for vocabulary, to have a little habit of checking your notebook or your flashcard app. Most people like to use a notebook. It's, good old pen and paper method. If you do it 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the evening, you will learn very fast. And then, of course, you have your 1 to 2 hours of actual practice. People who study one-on-one with me will have 1 or 2 hours with me per week, depending on the kind of intensity they want. And also they're always invited to the group session, which is on Sunday. So that could be up to 3 hours. And I definitely encourage everyone to speak French as much as they can, even though it might not be so easy, depending on, your situation, to find that. But yeah, so it definitely takes a few hours a week and you have to do as much immersion as you can.
That's awesome.
But it's a commitment. I mean, it's an investment. If you know it's important for you to, like, once you speak a language, you have it for the rest of your life. So yes, it will take some time and effort and probably money, but it's an investment.
I'm listening with kind of a perspective of this is coaching. This is,
Yeah.
it's like
Absolutely.
you
This is
can't
coaching,
you can't just teach. We used to say there are students that come and they're like, well, inflate my balloon. It's like,
It doesn't work
blow
this
me
way.
up. It's like it doesn't work that way. Like,
I wish would be easier.
well, I'm not sure I want clients that were just like that, right? It's like I want clients that are invested in
Right.
their own growth. I want clients that are invested in becoming better in the world. I want clients that are invested in lifting the people around them. And for you, as you teach French, it's not like, well, you want clients that just want to learn French so they can go to a movie. It's like you want clients that learn French that can also then hang with other French speakers and maybe enjoy the culture. Like go at some point, go to France, go to other French speaking countries or areas, connect online. It's like the connection and the community, I think, makes all the difference, and it makes all the difference in the world of success growth as well, right? So this is awesome. I'm appreciative. I have not interviewed somebody who does, like, I teach this very specific thing where the overlap of this is coaching. Like you want,
yeah, absolutely.
right? You invest like I invest myself into each of my clients, and you invest you into each of your clients. You have a framework, but you make it you make it unique to each person, right?
Absolutely. And you have to think that often if you do learn a language, it will open so many more possibilities. It's like every new language you add is a whole new world. Like for me, I would not have been able to live in German-speaking country and do everything I've done here if I hadn't learned German at some point. And, my girlfriend is Mexican, and we do mostly speak English together, but I also speak Spanish, and that helps a lot in that situation, and every new language you had is a new world, basically.
I just want to pause for a second.
Traveling. Yes.
I'm pausing you for a second. You come from Dijon, France.
Yes.
You moved to Vienna, then to Berlin, back to Vienna.
Yes.
And you met a Mexican woman and you speak German. This is awesome.
Yeah.
It's very international. How, I love everything about that story.
Because when you start having an international life and having several languages and having traveled a bit in different places, it becomes normal. So for me, like before you pointed it out, I should have known because it happens many times, but I just forget every time. It's normal for me in a regular day to speak 4 different languages.
That's fabulous.
It just happens. It's my life.
That may be the quote of this session, is that of this podcast is, it happens, it's my life. When you get
because like I said, it opens so many possibilities, and then it's just a part of who you are.
As with success, I love this language, success, your mindset around financial literacy, your mindset around owning a successful business, your mindset around learning a language, and then another, and then another, and then another. It's fabulous. It's really great. I don't know if you can hear my cat in the background. She's been known to join. She's been known to join me on podcasts before. This is great. Angel, what have I not asked you? What are you hoping that I would ask you? And a second question, because you can lump them both together, your answers. Where are you headed from here? Like, you have this successful coaching business. Now what? Right? So 2 questions. Have I not asked you a question that you were hoping I would ask? And what's next for you?
I was kind of expecting more questions about business, like how I built it and stuff like that. But I've answered those questions so many times. So if you don't, that's totally fine. I have other interviews that are available. And then what's next? I'm definitely going to continue coaching people online. I want to develop my group program more. Like currently, I have just enough students to fit 1 hour of coaching per week, but I definitely want to have more later, to have just open more possibilities, to have more coaching hours for the group. And like my dream that I've had for a while, I just need a bit of a bigger audience for that, is to do retreats in France and actually go to France with a group of students and, real life immersion, real life, actual challenges like, okay, we're going to this restaurant, you're going to speak to the waiter, or you're going to go to the library and speak to the employee of the library to get a French book. That kind of things. That would be absolutely awesome.
That is awesome. I love your plan for yourself. That's so good. There are different ways to build a business. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yes.
Since that was on your mind, and I didn't ask you about it. There are many different ways to build a business. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? Having an online coaching business is very different than having a store or going to work or working for a supermarket somewhere. It's like you chose to create an online business. So talk about that journey just a bit.
So I was in a situation where I was kind of forced to stay at home. And also I was just really, really good at English and not so good at German relative to, compared my English just a lot better than my German. Also because I was in Berlin in a fully immersed English speaking situation. And that was the reason why I really love working from home. I really love working in English. It just made more sense to have a business online and in English. And also, like I was telling you, it was the beginning of teaching online. So because that possibility was now a thing, it made sense for me to go all in that direction rather than try to continue teaching offline, which I had done a lot, and it had just not really gelled into something that was helping me make a living reliably. Because I had been doing that for many years, but just not enough people learning French in German-speaking context, and and also just not what I was the best at. I'm just better at English. And then because I was starting my business, that's like, we often say that building a business is the biggest crash course in self-development that you can have. And that is where I got the idea of coaching. I didn't set out to, I'm going to be a French learning coach. No, it's because I got into personal development for myself that I was like, okay, like I have to take this and bring it to French because it works together. And it seems that I was the first person to think of that, or at least I haven't found someone who has done it before me. It's a simple idea. I would not be surprised if someone came, out of the woods and be like, oh no, I did it 20 years ago. Like, it's simple enough,
Yeah.
But I didn't see it anywhere. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. And it made sense also because English speakers are traditionally the group of people who are the least prone to learning languages and the least, I don't want to say skilled, but it's kind of that, like historically the whole world is learning your language. So you haven't so much of an incentive, but sometimes you have to.
Well, Americans are sort of spoiled, right? Everywhere else in the world, you were exposed to a second language or a third language. By the time you're 10 years old in 4th, 5th, 6th grade, you've got exposure to 2 to 3 different languages. In the United States, at least, we aren't really exposed to that until middle school. And then it's an elective. It's not a mandate. And it's sad in many ways that we're not exposed to that. We're not given that as almost like it's optional. Everybody else in the world will speak English. It's like, not
it's
okay.
a bit of the double-edged sword of the world supremacy of being the biggest world power is that like there are many billions of whichever currency you want that are spent on learning languages, and over 50% of that is spent on people learning English. One language is more than 50% of the total budget.
Yes.
So it's huge, and it's an advantage, of course. Like you can say that you're spoiled, but on the other hand, if you end up in a position where you need to speak French and English, or if you need to speak English and Spanish or whatever, the likelihood that it will be an English native speaker in that position is very low, because
I just think that it's up to each of us to expand our horizons, and under the heading of, both activation and immersion, that when we go somewhere, that we pay attention to what's around us, and that we immerse ourselves and dare to actually enjoy the culture that we've gone to, and not try and bring our culture and impose that on the culture that already exists. So, yeah.
Sometimes it's easier with a coach too, which is,
very much
coming full circle with the whole point.
Very much to do that. I'm excited that you're saying that you're one of your goals for your future is to provide retreats. It's like, that'd be awesome.
I would absolutely love that. And another element of my own personal growth, which I've then integrated in my business, is the whole meditation aspect. So I have actually on my YouTube channel some meditation tracks that I've recorded to help students get into the mindset, like, jump into their French speaking self.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother topic that we could have discussed, but yeah.
Well, let's talk about, YouTube is free, right? So
absolutely,
people can access free content from you.
Yeah, a lot.
Is it under your name?
It's under my name, yes. Angel Pretot, the French coach.
Okay.
Yes.
I will, that'll be in the notes. Angel is like Angel, Angel. Yes. Pretot is Pretot, the French coach, which is awesome. So I think that's great. I personally will be looking you up on YouTube and beginning that kind of journey to just see what else you've got. Are you going to be doing books? Are you going to be doing downloadable courses, anything like that?
Yes, I definitely want to write books. That's a plan I've been having. I have some drafts. It's going to be a thing in the future, absolutely. And then I have my course, the French Fluency Accelerator. It's not really a downloadable because it's a membership and community. So some parts of it are downloadable, but I think the community is really important, and especially the weekly calls are important, because you can find a ton, honestly, of French courses and French books. Like when I write books, it will be more about the method and how to than about the language itself, because there are so many already. You don't need me to add one, right? But really, it's the practice element and the actually getting there that is really important.
I love this. So good.
I do have a free starter kit that you can download, which has 7 different resources, including one meditation track to open your mind to French, and a fluency worksheet, which is the core of the method that I use, and other little things like, how to learn vocabulary the right way, because yes, there is one way to do it, which is going to be a lot faster.
Well,
you can get that on my website, frenchfluency.net/starter kit.
Say it again, because this is what I was going to say. Is this is exactly where I was heading with you, is how do people reach you? You have something free to offer, which is amazing. So one more time, because
frenchfluency.net, that's the website. And you'll find everything on the website. I have my blog on that. All of my services are on there. But if you want to go straight to the free starter kit, frenchfluency.net/starter kit. You can write it in one word.
Okay. I'm going to repeat that. frenchfluency.net/starter kit.
Yes.
I will have all of that in my show notes as well. And that's the best way for people to reach you, to find out more about you, is frenchfluency.net.
Yes. So there is a contact form. You can email me directly from that contact form. You will go through my team, but that's the best way to reach me. Then if you get the starter kit, you'll be on the email list afterwards. So I will periodically send you new things. And yeah, YouTube comments, I will always read them and reply to them. I'm easy to reach. Oh, you can even, if you're interested in working with me, you can book a free 30 minutes call with me. You will have the link to that on like all of the pages of the program. And if you want to go directly there, frenchfluency.net/call, CALL. And that's going to be your application call for French coaching if you want to jump right on.
That's fabulous.
Yes.
Angel, it's
So
been
I'm
a
available.
pleasure. Pardon?
Mm-hmm. I'm available, definitely. Until I'm completely submerged with requests, which so far, I don't know, so far it has only happened once, but then it became more quiet again. So yeah, you can reach me.
Very good. You are accessible.
Yes.
This is great. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface, like to learn a little about you, about the way you think, about the way you coach, how you got to be where you are, and what's next for you. I mean, it's a beautiful personal story, as well as, you're offering insights on how to get better, just get better, like as a human. And you do that through language. So I appreciate all of that. Any closing thoughts beyond what you've offered?
I don't think so. No, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to talk to you. And yeah, I agree that we've only scratched the surface, and it's hard to get me to stop talking about things. So I definitely can speak a lot more about so many topics. But yeah, we have to contain ourselves to one episode, otherwise it never ends.
That's very true. So with that said, Angel Pretot, I will say merci.
Well, merci à toi. Thank you so much, Wayne, for having me. That was a pleasure.
It is a pleasure. All right. This is one sharp sword cutting through to what matters most. I've had Angel Pretot with me, and I am Dr. Wayne Pernell, the Exponential Success Coach. We'll see you here next time.